That is turning off, I think. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This morning we discussed Ishvara, the expression of Ishvara, which is evident to us, the evident expression of Ishvara as the very order or harmony that informs the entire universe. And we further discussed that this order or harmony is of the nature of what Lord Krishna calls yajna, which means self-offering. And we discussed how everywhere in the world there is as though this cosmic yajna going on, where every element in the creation is offering itself to maintain a harmony in the whole universe, and thus everything participates. Even though things may look inert and apparently not doing something, but in its own way, everything beginning from an atom all the way up to the huge galaxies, all of them participate in the scheme of things to maintain that harmony or order. Thus we have the unity in diversity of oneness among the many. As it is like we have in our own body, where we have different limbs. Each limb has a different place, different name, different function. Each one is different from the other. Hands are hands, legs are legs, head is head. Each one is different, has its own unique characteristics. Each one has a different place, performs different functions, but still they function in such a manner that there is a unity of oneness among all of them. Meaning that the activity of one limb does not militate against the interest of the other limb. Meaning hands do not do anything that will hurt our legs or eyes or ears and so forth. Thus all the limbs, all the organs, all of them function as one organic whole. It is an organic whole, and so also this universe is one organic whole. That is why in the Vedas this universe is described as one. It is called Purusha, or the cosmic person. It is compared to as though the whole cosmos is one person, like a human being. How in the human being, how there is that one self informing all the limbs, all the organs, every cell in the body, it is one self that informs, because of which there is that harmony, there is that cooperation. And so also, it is one self that informs the entire universe. And that is why the universe is compared to a Purusha or a person, where the Purusha Suktam, for example, says how the heavens are the head of this cosmic person, the earth is the feet, the wind is the breath, the space is the middle body, the quarters are, directions are the ears, the sun is the eyes, moon is the cosmic mind. And this way, it is not that we imagine a person, but the idea is that just as in a person or in a human being, how the different organs, different limbs, different parts of the body, how they all function as one organic whole, they function in harmony, in cooperation, and so also that is the scheme in the whole universe also. And therefore, our scriptures look upon the universe as an organic whole, an intelligent organic whole, not something inert. Although for our vyavahara, meaning for our transaction, we divide the objects as sentient and insentient for our own convenience. and we call this table insentient, we call this body sentient. So this division is helpful for our transactions. But the difference between this table and this body is that this body possesses what we call a subtle body which reflects the consciousness or the order as life, whereas this table does not possess a subtle body, and therefore the expression of the order is not as life. So how the order expresses, that varies depending upon the medium of expression. How electricity expresses some places light, some places heat, some places motion, depending upon the appliance or the medium through which it expresses. And so also this Ishvara, or this harmonious whole, or this order expresses itself as this whole universe differently depending upon the medium of expression. And therefore, in what we call the sentient beings, there is a subtle body, and therefore Ishvara expresses as life. In what we call the insentient things, there is no subtle body, therefore it does not express as life. That doesn't mean that consciousness is not present here, or Ishvara is not present there, because we associate in our mind consciousness with sentience. So we think that consciousness is where sentience is, and inert objects such as tables and chairs have no consciousness. It is true, they do not have the consciousness as we understand, but consciousness as intelligence, consciousness as order, consciousness as harmony is very much present in the table and chair as much as it is present in you and I. Because the table also displays intelligence, it displays knowledge. You say Ishvara is harmony, Ishvara is knowledge, what we call infinite wisdom, or sarvajnatam, omniscience. And every atom also expresses that omniscience. That omniscient Ishvara is present everywhere. I was just talking to somebody told me, drew my attention as to how this omniscience is everywhere. So says, look Swamiji, this fingerprint, which is what we give, this fingerprint is my identification. When can this fingerprint be my identification? There are millions of fingerprints in their database, which each fingerprint identifies the person. When can it be? Only when this fingerprint only belongs to one person and to no one else. No one else present in the whole universe possesses this fingerprint, this print. Not only in the present, no one in the past also possessed this, because if in the past somebody possessed this print and that is also in the database, then one fingerprint cannot identify a single person. And no one in future will ever possess this fingerprint also, because otherwise there will be confusion. You follow? This fingerprint seems to know. This fingerprint seems to know what all fingerprints were in the past, what all fingerprints are in the present, what all fingerprints will come in future. Is it not so? Every leaf seems to know, because no two leaves are identical. Each is unique, and that uniqueness can be if there was no entity equal to that or identical to that in the past, present, or future. Everything is unique that nature makes. What we make may look all alike, but then what human being makes is different. But what nature makes, because we are not omniscient, therefore we cannot make unique things. Therefore, we make all the same stuff. But nature, whatever is created, everything that is created is unique. And uniqueness shows that there is that knowledge, infinite wisdom, which knows all the three periods of time, what was in the past, what is in present, what will come in future. So that omniscience, that knowledge, our Pujya Swamiji says, that what is this Jagat or universe is nothing but the knowledge. Look at it this way. And so, however you see, we can see intelligence in every atom. We can see intelligence, we can see harmony, we can see knowledge, we can see oneness, we can see contribution, we can see self-offering, we can see yajna everywhere. All of this is the evident expression of Ishvara. Ishvara is all this and beyond this also. So this is what we call Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma means Brahma or Ishvara with attributes. So they are all attributes. Harmony is an attribute. Yajna is an attribute. Wholeness is an attribute. Uniqueness is an attribute. Knowledge is an attribute. All the attributes. They are called Guna. And Saguna Brahma is Ishvara with attributes. Meaning that this whole universe is nothing but, including you and I, are manifestations of one Ishvara possessing countless attributes, infinite knowledge, and infinite power, etc. This universe is an expression. So this is the Vedanta. This is how Vedanta teaches the nature of Ishvara. Yatah pravrittir bhutaram yena sarvamidam tatam. Lord Krishna gives several definitions in Bhagavad Gita. One definition I told you, Mai sarvamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. Lord Krishna says that I am Ishvara. And just as in thread, different beads are strung, and so also the whole universe is strung in me, who is the thread. That's one definition. Elsewhere Lord Krishna says, Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. Who is Ishvara? The one from whom is the activity of all the beings. Wherever there is an activity, understand that Ishvara as the very source of activity is present there. No activity of any kind is possible unless there is a source of activity. Call it consciousness, call it intelligence, call it that very source which impels all the activities. Yena sarvamidam tatam, and by whom all this is pervaded. This is Ishvara. Saguna Brahma, meaning Ishvara with these attributes. So this is Ishvara. And we also say how this Ishvara is not away from us. Because when I look at my own self, then I find that I am also the same nature. My nature also is nothing but consciousness or intelligence or harmony. That is my inherent nature. Whatever else I find in myself, namely smallness or limitedness, all of these are incidental. Incidentally there, or not really there, but I think they are there. The smallness or limitedness, I think it is in me. Not that it is in me, but I think it is in me. Like an actor thinking that he is a beggar. Even when he thinks that he is a beggar, he is not the beggar because he is not turned into a beggar. And so also, even when I think that I am a limited being, I am not. And just as a beggarness does not in any way touch the actor, and so also limitedness does not touch me. That's a saving grace. Suppose that if actor really thought he was a beggar, he became a beggar, then I don't think that anybody would want to assume those roles. Then actor would only want to become kings, they would never want to become beggar. If they became beggar by assuming that costume, if he became that, nobody will take that costume. But he knows very well that regardless of what costume he takes, he remains what he is, and that's what Upanishad explains. Upanishad says, Tat Shrushtva Tadevanu Pravishata. Ishvara created all these forms and names, Anupravishata. He entered into all of them like an actor entering into different costumes. So also, Ishvara first created all these costumes and entered into them, meaning that he alone is functioning through every costume. So this is our vision of Ishvara, which nobody can deny. Nobody can say, I don't believe in Ishvara. There is no Ishvara. So a Vedanti will ask this question. If somebody says, I don't believe in Ishvara, I don't think Ishvara is, then a Vedanti will ask a simple question, are you there or not? Do you believe that you are there? that I exist, is it a belief or is it knowledge? Tell me. It's not a belief. I think I should be there, because I'm talking to you. This is a question. How do I know, Swami, that I am? Is it because I'm thinking? Because I'm talking? That's why I say I'm there. So how can you talk and how can you think unless you are there to begin with? So you are talking you are there not because you are talking because you are there. Because you are there even when you don't talk. If I cease to exist when I'm not talking and when I'm not thinking, then you can say that I am there because I'm talking and thinking. But even when I'm not talking, not thinking, not doing anything, so I am there. Regardless of what I do, I can never run away from this fact that I am. You try that. Try to experience that you are not there. Try. Try to meditate. If you want to take somebody on a ride, ask them to meditate that you are not there. Meditate. To meditate, you must be there. Is it not so? Nobody can ever meditate on I am not there. Because to be is my nature, therefore it cannot be that I am not there. Or meditate, I am not conscious. You cannot unless you are conscious. And therefore, that I am conscious is a self-established fact. It doesn't require any proof. See, what requires proof is what is not self-evident. What is not self-evident requires proof. What is self-evident doesn't require proof. In this hall, the bulb is self-evident, let us say. Therefore, nobody has to prove that there is bulb. Whether you and I are there has to be proven. If the bulb is there, light is there. If light is not there, there is no proof that we are there. But how about proving light? Light is self-proving. In this example, and so also that I am, I shine. Nobody is to prove because it is a self-revealing fact which does not require what in Vedanta says does not require any pramana, does not require any means of knowledge to prove. See, if God had to be proven, these fellows present a huge arguments as to God, why God is not there. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but I'm under influence of some tapes that I heard, and so they conduct experiments. You see, because the theologians present God. And what's the proof of God being there? They say if you pray, then God answers your prayer. See, the moment you put this kind of a condition that God is because He does this or He doesn't do that, then it's okay, let's prove. You prove to us. So they will conduct experiments. Let's see if the prayers are answered or not. So they conduct experiments and they have a control group of patients who are all going through some heart bypass surgery or whatever it is. And some people, and there is a group of people who pray. And they're asked to pray. For X number of people, you tell them name and so forth, and you pray for them. Means that these people are praying for a certain number of people and not praying for other number of people. What's the prayer? Successful surgery, speedy recovery, long life. Pray. And other people, you didn't pray. And then let's see what happens. They found that there was no difference. Meaning that there was no difference in the recovery and whatever of the control group for whom prayer was performed and for whom prayer. They spent millions of dollars in conducting the experiment. And proved there's no God. Why? Because He did not answer prayers. If you say God is the one who answers prayers, well, He has proved that there's no prayer is not answered. So there's no God. This is a moment you say God is because of something, moment you say I am because I think or because I talk, there's a problem. So, similarly, it's not God is because of something, because He does something. Just to be is God. What Vedanta says that isness is God. Not that He is right, He is there, here and so on. Isness is God. Suppose you say that. Who can disprove that? Suppose you are God. You can't disprove that. That I am, that I exist, I am conscious, I shine. Another characteristic of us is each one loves ourselves. That's also universal. What is common between you and I? Everything else is uncommon. Everything else is unique. But what is universal is that I am, and so you also are. I am conscious, you are also conscious. And I never dislike myself. I always love myself unconditionally. And you also love yourself unconditionally. The only one whom we love unconditionally is our own self. Everything else we love only conditionally. As long as they satisfy our conditions, so long they remain the object of our love, and moment they cease to satisfy those conditions, they no more remain objects of love. This is how we are. I love you as long as you like me, as long as you help me, as long as you're useful to me, put it this way. I love you when you cease to be useful to me. In all of this, whether I love somebody or I hate somebody, in both of them, there is a love for myself. Is love for myself really that results as love for someone else or hatred for someone else? Think about this anyway. So idea is that, this is just a discussion on the side, but this question whether God is or not depends upon what your concept of God is. If you say God is kind, or prove to us that He is kind, then why is there so much cruelty? Why is there this, moment? So the Saguna Brahma is a tough job. But when what I'm saying is, it's a matter of faith. That Ishvara is kind, this is all a matter of faith. But that Ishvara is, that consciousness is, that I am, is not a matter of faith. It is a self-revealing fact, and that is the vision of God. Disprove that. For disproving you must be there to begin with anyway. But we also say Ishvara is kind for the simple reason that inherently, as we said in the morning, each one of us is a kind person. Inherently. Then why is there so much cruelty? As we said, kindness and cruelty do not enjoy the same degree of reality. Because cruelty is something which can be given up. Kindness can never be given up regardless of what you do. And therefore, cruelty is an incidental thing. In the world also, wherever you see cruelty, it is incidental. Where cruelty is there, right in that basis, there must be kindness. When I am cruel to you, in some way, I am kind to myself anyway. It is kindness to myself that results into cruelty to you because of my unintelligence. If I was an intelligent person, then my kindness would be kindness towards you also, but because of unintelligence, that my kindness gets distorted and becomes cruelty to you. So what is cruelty also is nothing but the distorted expression of kindness. The distortion is due to ignorance. Distortion is due to unintelligence. Not understanding things, wrong perception, wrong understanding. This is what creates distortion in our behavior. Thank God, it never distorts the true self. I still remain what I am. Meaning that, as we said in the morning, the cruelest person also in the core is a kind person. Therefore, the core person that you and I are is Ishvara. We said it's like Lord Krishna or any Ishtadevata that you have, that is what is a core person that you and I are. Not in terms of their miracles, not in terms of that power. That all belongs to Upadhi, that all belongs to the personality. But the person that Lord Krishna is the person that you and I are. This is the vision of Ishvara. And as we said, living a life on the basis of this vision becomes a life which is based on the realities, and if our definition is intelligent living is living in accordance with the realities, then this would be living. Then we said that there is the yajna or self-offering everywhere. Swamiji, what do I do to perform yajna in my life? What do you mean that there should be self-offering in my life? What should I do specifically? You say that perform your action worshipping Ishvara. How do I worship Ishvara? You say Ishvara is everything. How do I worship him? Very simple. I need not do anything specially. In whatever I do, as long as I bring into operation, in whatever I do, as long as I bring into operation my core being, which is a kind, good, loving person, if I bring that nature of myself into operation, automatically I am devoted to Ishvara. Or my action becomes an offering to Ishvara. If you understand that Ishvara is infinite kindness or universal kindness, then any action that is performed in harmony with that becomes really harmony with Ishvara, becomes an action offered to Ishvara. If it is done knowingly, it is even better. But then, therefore, what is meant by karma yoga or the life of yoga is whenever I perform an action, I bring into operation the core person that I am. Because there is also an incidental person in me. There are these incidental attributes in me, where I said this kama, krodha, lobha, this anger and indulgence or lust and greed and jealousy, unfortunately these incidental tendencies are also there in me. And whenever I am about to do anything, both these tendencies, my core tendencies as well as the incidental tendencies, both of these try to influence my action. Meaning that whenever I am about to do something, there is that anger in me, or greed in me, or the jealousy in me, and that tries to influence my anger, my action. So my greed tells me, Swamiji, don't give him. If a beggar comes before me, the greedy one in me says, don't give him. Swamiji, these beggars are all, they don't get anything really. All these beggars ultimately are all mafias, and so they take our money from, don't give them, don't encourage them. There is a voice from me. Other voices, poor fellow, give him something, you're not going to lose much, give him something. Both the voices are there. Which voice do I submit to? Usually submit to the voice of greed and justify somehow not parting with what we have. What is greed? Greed is not parting with what we have. One aspect of greed is not being satisfied with what we have, so we want always more and more than what we have. And second aspect of greed is not parting with what I have, even when there is the genuine occasion to do that. And why do I not part with? When I do not part with, I must justify it to myself. And therefore, the greed in me provides justification. Swamiji, he doesn't deserve it. Swamiji, he is all making a show. Swamiji, he has more money than you have. And all kinds of arguments, they are there. And that is how I justify not parting with what I have. When the customs officer asks me, do you have anything to declare? Again, there are two fellows. The honest one in me says, yes. Say yes. Tell him all this. The greedy one says, no. Telling him means all this lot of money in duty, and so you don't have to give him. And so the greed, both of them try to influence me. Usually the greed wins and the honesty loses in this battle. When I do that, which means that I am going against the very nature of myself. That is called hurting myself. Because the core nature of myself is kindness or generosity or honesty. And whenever I deliberately perform an action of dishonesty, that means that I am violating my own self. That is called unintelligent living. Unintelligent living is violating my own self, hurting myself. We said that the human being has a choice to help himself or hurt himself. other creatures cannot help themselves nor hurt themselves. That is why they are what they are. There is neither a spiritual growth in them nor there is a decline in them. And so a dog is born as a dog and dies also as a dog. Whereas a human being can die as a dog or as DOG or GOD, whatever choice we want to make. Depends on how I conduct myself. That choice we have. And whether we want it or not, we are always exercising that choice. Every time I make a decision. And ever, this living in keeping with the harmony or reality is making right choices. So intelligent living can also be translated as making right choices, because I can make a wrong choice. Why do I make wrong choice? Whenever I allow myself to be influenced by what is contrary to my nature. When I allow myself to be influenced by what is contrary to my nature, then I am making a wrong choice. I am violating my own self. I am hurting myself. This morning we told you about an expression, Ye kecha atmahano jana. Ishavasya Upanishad says, these people who are hurting themselves. Asurya namate lokaha andhena tamasavataha tamste pretya vigachanti ye kecha atmahano jana. What happens to them? Asurya namate lokaha andhena tamasavataha. Those realms which are characterized by darkness and blindness. So those realms these people wind up into. Those who live a life of hurting themselves, those who live a life of violating themselves. And we have to always pay the price. I may get away with something because my greed, but then I must pay the price in another way. That I wind up ultimately going into realms where there is blindness, there is darkness, there is ignorance, or there is inertness, meaning that I have a choice to go down in the ladder of evolution. Right now, as a human being, I am possessed of this faculty of choice, this free will. I am possessed of an intelligence, an intellect, with which I can learn and with which I can make the right choices. If I keep on making wrong choices, then the result will be I will be deprived of that faculty of choice. You know what that means? I will have another birth also, but a birth in which this faculty of choice will not be there because I have abused it. Like this one beggar comes begging and he declares his presence, and the lady of the house comes out. Says, Ma, give me some milk, this fellow said. She was very kind and she brought milk and poured into his vessel. And this beggar walked for a while. This woman is watching, what does this beggar do? That milk he poured into the gutter. That's what the beggar did. Then this woman watched. Next day again, the beggar comes. Mother, please give me some milk. Says, forget it. Will you give him milk again? So what did you do with the milk I gave yesterday? I saw you pouring it into the drain. That means you abuse what was given to you, you are not going to get it again. So also, whatever faculties we abuse, they say, this is all a matter of belief. But then, if you keep on abusing speech, the next time you will not get speech. If you keep on abusing your legs and go to places or do things which which is unintelligent or which is not becoming, then there will be no legs. So that is why we have so many kinds of beings. Like the trees are also living beings, but no legs. There are so many animals, but no speech. So that is why, because a human being is capable of performing all kinds of actions, God had to create all these kind of species so that he can be awarded in accordance with how he conducted himself. So you can see what capabilities we have. God had to create 8.4 million kinds of species. Because so many kinds of abuses, I guess, or violations we seem to be capable of. Ye kecha atmahano janaha. Whether we believe this or not is a different matter. I don't think that we have to wait for next birth. In fact, the result, the outcome of this comes in this birth itself. We don't have to go too far. I mean, this, by violating myself, meaning by violating this value, I create a conflict in my own mind. There is created a sense of guilt in my own mind. I cannot get away from it. Swami, there are people who don't feel any guilt. I don't see, the people who are professional liars, nothing happens to them. There are cold-blooded murderers, nothing happens, there's no guilt. That only means guilt shows that at least some sensitivity is left. Only a sensitive person can feel guilty. Who can feel guilty? A person who is sensitive. Person does not feel guilty. What it means is that that person has lost the sensitivity, meaning that he is no more a human being. Lord Krishna says, buddhinashat pranashyati dhyato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu vajayate sangat sanjayate kamah kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibramah. The familiar verses, some of you are memorizing Bhagavad Gita, so I'm just watching the expressions, whether these verses appear familiar or not. Krodhat bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibramah smriti bhramshat buddhinasah buddhinashat pranashyati. Lord Krishna says that when this nature of indulgence has been unchecked, when this tendency to indulge, kama means the tendency to indulge, when it takes over me, and whenever that desire or craving is frustrated, then it transforms into anger. When anger comes, the person becomes mad. And when he or she, whatever, becomes mad, then they forget what is right and what is wrong. Not only they forget, what is wrong appears right and what is right appears wrong. You always do what is right, at least from your standpoint, except that time what is wrong appears as right, so you think you are doing right. Every murderer thinks that every terrorist thinks that what he's doing is right, because that's what they deserve. This is what must. But then, when our own vision becomes perverted, when a person becomes mad or intoxicated because of anger or greed, then my perception becomes perverted. So that is why krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means delusion. Delusion means seeing contrary to what there is. Like Vedanta says, seeing a snake where there is rope. Similarly also, a person who is intoxicated by this anger or greed sees which is right where there is wrong and sees wrong where there is right. Therefore, from his standpoint, he is doing what is right. But in fact, he is doing wrong. And so he winds up behaving in a manner which is most unbecoming, which any sensitive person regrets later on. And if I do not do something about this and allow myself to be controlled by this kind of madness again and again, in terms of being angry, in terms of being cruel, in terms of being greedy and whatever, and thus I subject myself to be controlled by these violations again and again, buddhinashah, slowly there is buddhinashah. There is a destruction of or damage to my very intellect, meaning my faculty of thinking and my faculty of choosing and discernment, that very faculty which is what distinguishes me from other living beings, that very faculty gets affected. buddhinashat pranashyati. If I don't do anything about it, ultimately I invite my own, that's called self-ruin. I still remain a human being in photographs, meaning that in appearance I remain a human being. But inside, I am no more a human being. So just because a person appears as a human doesn't mean so. When somebody says, Swamiji, this person is a cold-blooded murderer, he doesn't feel any guilt, that means what? He has managed to ruin himself. He has lost that sensitivity with which he can even feel, that he can feel guilty. Nothing wrong in feeling, that shows at least that I am sensitive. I don't feel guilty is not a virtue. If he doesn't feel guilty, what will he feel? He won't feel happy also. Because for feeling we have the same faculty. The faculty with which I feel guilt is the faculty with which I enjoy things, understand? Therefore, for enjoying even a simple thing like a flower or like a child or whatever, you require that same sensitivity. When I do not feel guilt, meaning that sensitivity has been lost, then I can't enjoy those things. Nothing appeals to me. Then I require very hard things, to have some kind of an impact. These soft little things, they do not influence me at all. Anyway, the idea is that we can live so unintelligently that we can ruin ourselves. It is possible. So Lord Krishna says, Trividham narakasyedam dvaram nashanam atmanah kamah krodha tatha lobha tasmat etat trayam tyajed. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that this kama, krodha and lobha, this lust and anger and greed are the gateway to hell, gateway to suffering. Hell you need not imagine as a different realm. Hell is, whenever I feel there is a conflict inside, when there is a strong dislike about my own self, when I feel, there is a self-non-acceptance or a self-rejection or a self-condemnation, there is nothing, then no less than hell. So hell can mean this mental suffering. Lord Krishna says that a person who subjects himself allows himself or herself to be influenced by this kama, krodha, lobha, they are all the same thing. The names are three, the same stuff. They are all made of the same stuff. Because when kama becomes, when my desire is satisfied, then the desire never goes away. Satisfying desire is like pouring butter into fire. Therefore, the desire only becomes stronger. It becomes greed, which can never be satisfied. And my desire is frustrated. It becomes anger, which also cannot be satisfied. Therefore, this kama, krodha, lobha, all of these are compared to fire. Mahashano, mahapapma, vidyena mehevairanam. Or dushpurena analena cha. Lord Krishna compares them to anala, means fire. Dushpurena analena, just as fire cannot be satisfied by offering fuel to that, and so also this kama, krodha, lobha cannot be satisfied. Moment it looks like everything is fine. That I get angry, I express my anger, everything seems to be fine. It's, that's why they say that when you get angry, better express it. That's what they advise. Don't keep the anger within yourself. Let it be out. By then I already hurt somebody, So when I let my anger out, that means what? Every time I act out of anger, I'm going to hurt somebody. When I get angry at somebody, which means that I insult that person. I behave in a manner which is not in keeping with the dignity of that person. Whether it is a spouse or child or friend or whoever it is. Moment I act out of anger, which means that in my view or in my vision, I actually put them down and there is no dignity. Meaning that I do not honor the dignity of the person to whom I get angry. that person feels hurt. Person's, feels insulted, feels hurt. And if I do that, if I am in a position of authority, and I do that again and again, I create in that person a complex that that's how they are. So that's why when we are subject to somebody's anger, a person who is in position of authority or an important person for us, as Pujya Swamiji says, everybody has some important people in their life. It may be father or mother or uncle or teacher, some people who are important to us, whose approval is important to us. That is why we always try to keep them happy, because we want them to be happy with us. Then alone I feel good about myself. And therefore, for me to feel good about myself, the approval of some people in this life is very important. Our Swamiji, his approval is very important. And therefore, I would never want, for example, that Swamiji should ever be unhappy with me. Because if so, then I feel there is something wrong with me. But he cannot be wrong. Meaning that person who is important cannot be wrong, then I alone can be wrong. So when that person gets angry at me, then it creates in me the feeling that there is some problem, something wrong with me. That's how children believe. When parents get angry at children, then because parents are very important for children keep on believing that I think there is something wrong with us. Or, in short, whenever I insult somebody, whenever I disrespect them or their dignity, I also create in them a complex, an inferiority complex, a complex that I am no good. That's how I make that person feel. And I'm hurting the person. I can destroy a person that way. But before that, I'm destroying myself also. Thus this anger, greed, this kama, krodha, lobha are destructive. They bring about a ruin of myself as well as ruin of the person upon whom it is expressed. Then nothing may happen to that person. Some people, I don't care whether he gets angry or not. Therefore, maybe when I get angry at somebody, it may not matter to that person. Swami, I know, my mother is like that, my father is like that. Don't worry, don't take it seriously. Children know this. Swabhav, this is nature. That's how it is. And then the person who is object of anger may perhaps be unaffected, but the person who expresses anger is very much affected. It is like taking a ball of fire in my hand to hurt somebody. But before I hit at anybody, my hand is burnt. If that fellow ducks, then nothing happens to that person, but I am burnt anyway. That is why Atmahano Janaha. Whenever we allow ourselves to be controlled by these tendencies, which are a result of unintelligence, is a product of unintelligence, which is also is there in us. That's what we said on the very first day, that we are born with unintelligence. And what is the expression of unintelligence in us? All these kind of negative tendencies. Whenever I allow myself to be controlled by them, that will be unintelligent living. It is hurting my own self, and if I do not do something about it, I can invite my own ruin. But Swamiji says that, look, this does not happen automatically. This kama, krodha, lobha will not go away automatically by themselves. In fact, more I subject myself to their control, more stronger they become. And therefore, a life of yoga, one of the aspects of life of yoga is not to submit myself to the control of these devilish or evilish tendencies, evil tendencies, or whatever you want to call them. Asuri Sampat, Lord Krishna calls them. So demonic tendencies, that I do not subject myself to, meaning that I do not allow them to control me. So Lord Krishna says, Shaknoti heva yasodhum prak sharira vimokshanat kamat krodhodbhavam vegam sayuktaha sasukhi naraha. Lord Krishna says, this person is a yogi who keeps under control his force or impulse of anger, greed, etc. Meaning that it is I do not have control over not getting angry, the anger will arise. Anger does not seek my permission to arise, it will arise. Why will it arise? Because unintelligence is there. Ragadveshas are there. In Pujya Swamiji's words, the unconscious is there. The unintelligence is there, it's all stored in there. And now and then it expresses itself as anger. What that unconscious is, I do not know. But I know when it expresses as anger, then I know that it is the expression of all the unresolved things. And so, when this force arises, what I do is, I do not subject myself to that. I keep it under check. That is, anger is arising in my mind. But I do not allow that anger to dominate my action. Usually anger arises, I speak out. Anger arises, I do something. And so what I should do? Anger arises inside and I keep my mouth closed, that's all. It wants to say something, I do not allow it to say. I keep my hands under my control. They want to do something, I do not allow them to do. My hands, legs and speech, these are the three organs of action where the anger expresses, Swamiji, a lot of abuses are there in this world, maybe. But then, because we do not keep this under check. And so, anger arises right now, except that anger arises, greed arises, that lust arises, because the causes for them are within ourselves. And therefore, whenever somebody pushes one of those buttons, then it gives rise to these expressions of kama, krodha, lobha. Okay. Some damage is done because of the horizon, but at least I can prevent further damage by not allowing these to express themselves through my action. This is the freedom I have. I can use my freedom of choice. I can use my free will and not subject myself to be controlled by this. And I can contain them within myself. I can control their expression of this force of anger, etc. This choice I have. Lord Krishna says, Sayuktaha, Sasukhi Naraha. This person is a yogi. That is why this becomes life of yoga. The first step in yoga is to keep these impulses under check and not allow them to control my actions. So at least they do not get expressed at the level of action. First level of yoga. Second level of yoga is that they don't arise. That's a huge thing. But then, at least this much we can do. That even when they arise, we do not allow them to control. That's a big thing. Because our Swami says, look, you're victimizing people. Whenever I get angry, I victimize. Out of anger, out of greed, out of lust, whenever I act, I victimize the person who is the object of this kama, krodha, lobha. I victimize others. At least that kind of damage I can stop. I can stop victimization of others. And so, this is the first step of what we call the life of yoga, where I have value for keeping this under check. This is my offering. What is my offering? The impulse of anger is offered. Where? In the fire of self-control. Because of my value. That I want to be a kind person. I don't want to be an angry person. Even if I am not kind, at least I do not allow anger to control me. That means that I offered the force of anger into the fire of self-control or fire of kindness. That's a yajna. So this offering takes place. Offering takes place when I keep these impulses under check. And so, how life of yoga involves offering in this way. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. But we wanted to, so how to implement this in our practical life, how to make life a yoga, how to make life yajna, this is the first step. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.